Minister, how can Gardaí be interacted into our communities in a way that is visible to the public in our towns, villages and our rural areas in County Limerick and around the country?
Thank you, Deputy, for raising this question. And I just want to start by assuring you that we are, and I am in particular, absolutely committed to ensuring that there's strong, visible policing throughout the country. The Garda budget, which was provided by Government this year, has essentially been the largest budget to Garda Síochána for over €2 billion for 2022. We obviously have a very strong tradition, and I've just come from an event in the Gresham Hotel where we commemorated the establishment of the Civic Guard, which then became Garda Síochána, and the event itself was policing over the 100 years, and what's actually core to the policing since the very start in 1922 to now is the really strong connection that our Garda Síochána have with our community. I think in part that's because of the fact that we're an unarmed armed force, and that in itself breaks down a lot of barriers, but I suppose putting people and protecting people at the very centre of the work from Garda Síochána has created that engagement. I was in Templemore last week. We had 102 new Garda members that were attested. Prior to that, 156. I think we have between 50 or 60 now in the next few weeks, and as of September we'll have 200 every 11 weeks. So obviously important in making sure Gardaí are visible is making sure that we have more Gardaí on the beat. So we've increased our numbers in the last year or two, but we now will get to a stage come September where every 11 weeks we will have 200 Gardaí being represented and being sent right across the country. There's obviously a huge number of ways in which they then can do their work. Firstly, it's about making sure that they are spread out across the various different communities, and that's obviously a role for the Garda Commissioner, but also about making sure that we have as many Gardaí on frontline duties. So even in the last number of years, 800 Garda members have been reassigned to frontline duties because we have our other Gardaí who are coming in and doing work behind the desk and in the office. We also have a budget of 147 million. A significant number of that is going into ICT, which again allows Gardaí to do their job more effectively out on the beat and to engage with people in a different way as well. We've had 12 million invested in our Garda fleet, which again means more Gardaí out in our rural towns and villages, and also investment in bikes, so in towns and larger villages as well, to see Gardaí on their bikes as well as patrolling on feet, I think is what people want to see. I can come back on that.
Minister, to get extra people on the ground, we need to tackle the point of view of if a Gardaí is on a shift, and if they have an arrest, whether it is for antisocial behaviour, car accident, whatever they have to do, there's about 3 hours of their day then turns into paperwork. And those 3 hours of the day are spent behind doors where they're not visible. And to counteract that, we need more Gardaí on the ground. And I understand that there's more people being trained up, there's more people being deployed. But we need to make sure that they're covered in the towns, villages and rural areas around the county, and not to head a population within the larger cities. Because when the Gardaí are in a local area in a county, they have to travel probably up to 40 square miles to cover areas themselves. There might be only 4 or 5 Gardaí on. If one is sick, if one are paperwork, we need extra Gardaí. So we need to double the amount of Gardaí that we have in our stations around County Limerick to ensure that we have a police presence at all times, whether we have people sick or otherwise, or whether they're stuck at paperwork behind the desk after their investigations during the day.
Thank you. I mean, look, I think in terms of the premises of your question as to how we can have more visibility by the Gardaí within our communities, yes, number one, it's making sure we have more Gardaí, and obviously the more we have in our communities, in our towns and villages, be it behind the desk, be it in frontline duties, be it working in the specialist units that are being developed, be it economic crime, online fraud, or the new types of crimes that are being committed, domestic violence, and obviously community engagement as well. There are other ways I think that Gardaí can be even more visible if we think about the fact that our Garda stations and our teams are online as well. I attended my own joint policing committee yesterday, where our sergeant talked about their own Facebook presence and how they're engaging with people on Instagram and how they're actually communicating what's going on in an area, how people can contact them. So there's a visibility online as well as actually physically in communities with people. You have the development of the community safety partnerships, which I think is a really important way in which all members of the community can engage with the Gardaí, because it's not just say our local councillors and representatives in the JPC, it's our educational providers, it's HSE, it's local community groups and organisations, it's minority groups. So it's a way for people to actually engage with the Gardaí within the community that perhaps hasn't existed to date as well.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, I appreciate everything the Garda do. And we see how much of a dangerous job it is when we see 4,000 Gardaí were assaulted in the last 5 years, 243 injured after being assaulted. So, Minister, what I'm trying to say to you, for us in Limerick to have a good Garda service, we need a headquarters. And I said it to you last week, is Newcastle West is without its headquarters. And we were promised when the old station closed down in Newcastle West, with a population of 8,000 people around Newcastle West alone, we have no headquarters. They're actually in 2 houses in Eskeaton working a Garda station from there. They do fantastic work. Yes, they are upskilling through the internet and everything. Yes, they are. But they need a headquarters. We need a place where our Gardaí can have a proper headquarters, so the proper infrastructure is put in place. I don't have a problem with what the Gardaí are doing. I have a problem with the infrastructure that is there to support the Gardaí. So anything you can do to help us to get our Garda station back in Newcastle West, I would much appreciate it. Thank you.
Deputy, we need to protect the Gardaí. We need to make sure that when they go about their business and they actively put themselves in harm's way to protect us, they need to be supported. We can do that in many ways by making sure that they have the stations and the areas to work in appropriately, that they have the technology and equipment that they need, that they have the cars, that they have the appropriate training, which is something that the unions have raised with me quite a lot in terms of the capital budget. I'll be finalising hopefully in the coming weeks with Minister O'Donovan a new capital plan, which will obviously set out for the next number of years what that looks like, not just in terms of the physical infrastructure but also the ICT. So I think there's a number of ways in which we can support the Gardaí to do their job, and obviously by supporting Gardaí you're encouraging more people to apply, and I think that's reflected in the fact that in the most recent competition we had over 11,000 people applied, which was absolutely fantastic, which will allow us to have that rolling 200 people every 11 weeks coming out of Templemore. What's great also in it is that about 40% of the applicants were women, so it's becoming more attractive to women, even though it is obviously a challenging role. But also you have a much more diverse application profile, so people need to see themselves in the Gardaí that support that keep their communities safe. So the fact that we have much more diversity and many more backgrounds and people who weren't born in Ireland are now applying, I think is really welcome, and that in itself, that visibility, encourages people to engage, and in particular younger people to engage with the Gardaí when they see themselves in the Gardaí.